welcome everyone to another week of the Commanders Film Room. We are here breaking down a 41-24 victory against the Las Vegas Raiders. Breaking down the game today. A little throwback action over there. You can find us every 4 p.m. on YouTube. Definitely check us out on the Big Doug and Carmi Show. Give us a like and subscribe so you can definitely keep up with our weekly work with my guys, Mark Bullock and Nick Ackridge. Gentlemen, how you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Yeah, good, man. How about you?
Doing very well. Can't complain. Getting over Wednesday, the hump day. We're getting through the middle of the week, so everything's all good. Let me start off with this, guys. A 41-24 victory, a bounce-back game against the Green Bay Packers. Nick, I'm going to throw this over to you. It was a kind of an up-and-down game, right? So the score kind of showed a pretty, extensive win when it was all said and done, but there was some kind of tight moments throughout the game. I guess my first question to you is, what was your gut reaction after the game?
I was just very happy with what Cliff did in running the ball. Almost like he listens to us. Just kind of, and it made me kind of. I mean, I was really happy with what he did in the run game, but I was also kind of like maybe even more upset about Thursday's game, where it was like, why wasn't this in the same sort of plan? But gut reaction was really happy with what the run game did. Also, still pretty nervous about the secondary and the defense there. There was still a lot of busted coverages and stuff. And then this team is just getting hit with the injuries, and it's tough. So
absolutely. I think you nailed it. I think walking away from the game, there was definitely some positivity. Clearly, when Cliff Kingsbury has time to prepare for a game, he does a really good job, right? Having a short week against Green Bay, we saw some deficits there. We saw the team struggle there, but they bounced back. And I agree with you. The secondary is still a question, something to keep an eye on, and the injuries are starting to add up. So I do definitely agree there. Mark, there was definitely some stress and some anxiety with Marcus Mariota starting last week with Jaden Daniels out. He played pretty well, man. I thought he had a pretty good game. Was that surprising to you? What stood out?
No, it wasn't particularly surprising. Every time we've seen Mariota in this offense last year, he played pretty well. He's not this amazing quarterback that you're going to be like, okay, we have a quarterback controversy now, but he's super efficient in this system, and he enables them to do a lot of what they do with Jaden Daniels, certainly with the quarterback run game, and so they can keep a lot of the offense the same. He's good on the rhythm and timing stuff. He's maybe slightly better over the middle right now than Jaden is. So they can do a lot of the intermediate and short, quick game stuff. So yeah, I wasn't particularly surprised that he played well. I think against tougher defenses he might struggle a little bit more, but that is the life of a backup quarterback. There's a reason he's a backup, not a starter. But I'm not too surprised. I thought he did really well, and he played kind of as I expected him to, which was efficient and allowing them to do what they wanted to do on offense.
I'm glad you explicitly stated there is not a QB controversy here in DC. Thank you for pointing that out. Marcus Mariota is a good fit for the system. He's a good transitional quarterback or spot starter when Jaden Daniels is out, but we all know that Jaden Daniels has that higher upside. But he did his job. It's what's ironic is out of 3 game appearances for Marcus Mariota, 2 of them, the team has scored 40 or more points, which I think is pretty impressive. So we do have a pretty valuable backup there. That being said, Washington ran all over the Raiders. It's going to be the focus of our game today, our film breakdown today. They had over 200 yards. And what I'm going to do is throw it over to Mark and talk about what was so effective about it. So, Mark, the stage is yours.
Yeah, well, it was really fun, and I think Nick and I are going to enjoy this one because it's a lot about the run game.
We might get through 5 total plays.
We'll see where we go, guys. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so it was really good to see how they came out with the commitment to run the ball, despite not having John Bates, who's obviously a very key part of their run game. So they had to make up for that somehow, and I speculated one way they might do it is spread the defense out and try to run the ball with no tight ends. They went the opposite way, which was they bring big Trent Scott in as the kind of 6th offensive lineman. They bring Sinnott in as the 2nd tight end, and then here we've got Zach Ertz, but at times it was Colson Yankoff as the 3rd tight end. So they went real heavy and really committed to the run game with a 6th offensive lineman instead of John Bates, because sometimes John Bates is effectively a 6th offensive lineman. So so that's the way they went, and they committed to it. So we've got right off the bat the first 3 plays that we're going to show are the first 3 plays that Washington ran, and it was all this kind of thing where they go jumbo personnel. You get Scott and Sinnott lined up on the line of scrimmage. You got Ertz behind the line of scrimmage. He's going to motion across, and he's going to come across and kick out the edge defender. And then you're going to see Chris Rodriguez take this on a handoff inside. So we'll run this through, and you'll see how we get into it. You can see that all the offensive linemen are all blocking in the same direction to the right side. Connolly loses out to Crosby. Crosby was a problem in this game, but he's a problem every game. But he's a damn good player, and this game made me appreciate that. I probably wasn't as high on him as I should have been, but damn, he's good. But yeah, you see everyone else is blocking in sequence, and you've got Ertz coming across to kick out the backside, and Rodriguez takes the handoff. And what we have here is you see Crosby gets into the backfield here and gives Rodriguez an issue, because Rodriguez wants to take this run back all the way to the outside, and Crosby is suddenly in his face. So he then has to make a really sharp cut to get back inside. And he does a really nice job here of making the sharp cut to get back inside. Now, if I want to just wind this back a little bit to pause it, just to show the middle linebacker. So the reason Rodriguez wants to get outside here is, you can see if he had just carried on that run up the middle, this middle linebacker is ready to fill that hole straight away. So that's why Rodriguez sees this and thinks, I need to cut this all the way back. But once he gets there, this guy is being a menace on the edge, and he has to work it back inside. But because Rodriguez started to go back this way, you can see the reaction this linebacker has. He's like, oh, he's going to the edge. You can see how his body position and his helmet position is all pointed towards the edge. So he tries to scrape over the top. And what that does is it takes the linebacker scraping over the top out of this gap. And then when Rodriguez is able to cut back inside, suddenly there's a hole there for him to hit. And he works inside and gets some nice blocks inside from Chris Paul, and Tyler Biotish picks up that linebacker nicely. And those two I thought were pretty good throughout this game in the run game. And that cleared that lane for Rodriguez to hit that out the middle, and they picked up 5 yards on the first carry. Then on the very next play, they do sub out Zach Ertz for, I think Terry McLaurin came on, or Debo came on the field. But they still got this 2 tight end look with Trent Scott as a 6th offensive lineman and Sinnott on the edge. And
this is all from the first drive, right? These are the first drive?
This was the second play of the game for them.
I mean, I remember watching it, and like I think I tweeted out, like, I think the first 9 run plays, it was all a different concept, and he played with 3 tight ends, 2 back sets, wildcat, QB run, like everything. He threw everything at them in the first 9 or 10 plays, which I absolutely love, because now you kind of get a picture of what they're going to kind of do against these. What are they going to bring out against heavy tight end sets, 2 back personnel, all that sort of stuff. And again, it just makes me so frustrated with the Thursday game, but it was just so cool to see. Like, this is what made this offense so great last year. And when you have a backup quarterback in, being able to run the football like they did, it makes Mariota's job 10,000 times easier. And Cliff is clearly not afraid to let Mariota run, whereas they might be a little bit afraid to let Jaden run. They let Mariota just run straight into people, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah. So very next play, second play of the game, Chris Rodriguez gets this ball. This time it's an outside zone run to the left. They're running behind this tight end duo. Trent Scott, we'll call him a tight end. And we get some real nice blocks up front. So Chris Paul reaches across the defensive tackle and reaches him inside and gives Biotish a chance to get across. Trent Scott helps Laramie Tunsil secure the defensive end before he works up to the linebacker. You got Ben Sinnott kicking out Jamal Adams on the end here, and Andrew Wiley reaches this backside defensive tackle to see them off on the backside. So the only real threat at this point is this linebacker, who you hope one of these two is going to be able to work up to get. However, as Rodriguez thinks about cutting this early, this linebacker is in this hole. And this, I think, is a little bit of a misread for him. Ideally, you'd like to see him press this to the edge a little bit more. I think he cuts this back a little bit too early, but credit to him, he's able to make the most of it. So by cutting early, he commits this linebacker in this lane. And that makes it easier for these guys, because then he bounces it back outside, especially with this defensive tackle here as well. And he bounces it outside, and that gives these guys an easier block on this linebacker. It also gives Trent Scott a little bit of extra time to shove that defender inside and peel off and get this linebacker. So he makes a really nice cut, just about gets away from them. And then you see, and Trent Scott peels off, gets that linebacker. You got Sinnott kicking out Adams on the edge, and that's a real nice lane for Rodriguez to work into. And
great run.
I'm kind of surprised the safety was able to bring him down, but he did just about. And I when he broke through, I thought that's a touchdown for Rodriguez. But we'll take 14 yards on the second run of the game. So that then. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, going along with that, I believe Trent Scott was on the field for 19 different plays. They ran the ball 17 times, and I think they were averaging more than 4 or 5 yards per carry. I think it was like 4.6 yards per carry with that additional blocking tight end with Trent Scott there. Yeah. Quick question for you, gentlemen. I know, especially Nick, I know you study the offensive lines. They honestly, we know they had a great running game this last game. Was there noticeable improvement? Because there was 2 offensive guards that were replacements for this game. Brendan Coleman sat out. We added Wiley there. Was it noticeable to both of you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark touched on it. I think Chris Paul had a great game. And I think the rest of the line was just pretty solid. I think Chris Paul was the best. Just kind of looking over our grades. Ben Sinnott had a great game blocking. Thought he was good. Biotish was good. Tunsil was fine. Connerly struggled a bit. We just kind of saw in that previous play, but he had Max Crosby going up against him, which Crosby is his get off is insane. Like there's a play, I think it was a sack where he is in the backfield before the handoff is even made or whatever. So, but I think Chris Paul had an incredible game. I was really pleasantly surprised with that one. Mark and I talked about how Coleman kind of struggled the first 2 games. And I kind of said, like, if you were really kind of watching this offensive line, him being a healthy scratch was not that much of a surprise. But yeah, I thought Chris Paul played great. I thought Ben Sinnott played great.
I'd fully agree with that. Also, nice appearance by the cat there.
Frequent guest on the show.
He always likes to say hello. Right, so that was a nice first 2 runs. So we've seen in the past that Cliff does have a little tendency to get away from the run game when it's working. And what was really encouraging was to see he was just going to stick with it in this game. And it kept working. So he kept sticking with it. And so this was the 3rd play. This was the very next play after that 14-yard run. We get back into the 3 tight ends. Zach Ertz comes back on the field, and you've still got Sinnott and Trent Scott as the 6 offensive linemen here. And they're just going to run inside with Rodriguez. And he does a nice job again. Let's run this back a little bit. Something I think Chris Rodriguez does a little bit too much is dance around behind the line of scrimmage and looks to cut a little bit too early.
I was going to say that because I think fans and I know our metrics rate him really highly because he breaks a lot of tackles, but I think the reason that he is not getting as much playing time as fans would like to see is because of the stuff that we're kind of showing right here, that he does sort of dance a little bit. And he got away with it on those first 2, but it will come back to bite you at times.
Yeah. So this is a little inside run, and you can see the offensive line's all blocking to the right, and he immediately looks to cut this back to the left. Now, in an ideal world, these little inside runs do often hit on the backside, especially from the gun. It's very common for it to hit on the backside, but you need the running back to press the front side to get these guys to commit over the top to that front side to open up those backside lanes. By trying to cut this back immediately, all it does is signal these guys to come and fill quicker and not flow over the top to create the lanes. So he cuts this back. Now, again, he gets away with it because this linebacker is very reactive to him. He sees him cutting back, so he tries to scrape over the top to get back to this backside where he thinks he needs to be. And then that creates that lane inside for him to then cut back to the right. If he's doing that on purpose, it's incredible skill. I think it's probably a misread and he got away with it. But you see a little bit of what they get from Chris Paul here, which is a hell of a lot of strength when he's down blocking and shoving guys down the line. And that creates a nice lane. This is your left tackle, this is your left guard. If you've got 2 yards of space for the running back to run through between them, you're pretty happy about that. And again, part of that is because Rodriguez cut this back early and then got this linebacker to go the wrong way. But he finds his way through that hole. He picks up another solid 4-yard gain.
Quick question, Mark, if you don't mind me interrupting. Were either one of you guys disappointed about the distribution of the ball with the running game? Right, I know that people really want Krosky-Merritt to get the ball more, McNichol, or so on and so forth, or Rodriguez. I thought it was kind of a surprise that Rodriguez got the first couple carries of the game. How about you guys?
No, I was happy with it. I think Rodriguez is probably a more consistent runner at this point. Bill is a home run hitter and can be an explosive guy. Something Ben Standig mentioned yesterday when we did a podcast with him yesterday was Bill didn't play a game all of last year. Well, he played one game then didn't play the rest of the season. So, you don't want to just chuck a guy in at the deep end and say, here's 20 carries a game and then have him burn out straight away when he had no workload last year. So I don't mind them playing him as kind of this change of pace back for now. Obviously, if he keeps playing the way he does, you want to give him more and more touches. But I think the thing Kingsbury said in his presser last week or the week before was quite telling. It's that when Bill gets the ball, he's electric, but it's the stuff he does when he doesn't get the ball that he still needs to work on it. And that means stuff like pass protection, stuff like running routes, the proper depths and stuff like that. That's all stuff that plays into being able to get on the field and be trusted more, because you can put a guy on the field and be like, we're going to hand the ball off to you. But if the defense loads the box and you need to change out of a play and call to a pass play, you need to trust that running back is going to be able to pass protect if there's a blitz coming. And if they can't trust him being able to do that, then he's not going to be on the field as often as you would like. So I think he's still got a ways to go in that. And he did have a nice blitz pickup in this game. We'll hopefully get to that if we don't take forever talking about 10 run plays. But we'll get back into it. So this was Chris Rodriguez's fifth run, I think. So they obviously went and scored the touchdown a few plays after that. This was their next drive. And this one was a nice example of A, Rodriguez's ability to make guys miss, but B, another example of Chris Paul, and also Max Crosby being a menace. So Crosby's going to stunt inside here. They're going to have this defensive tackle come up the field, and Crosby's going to loop around him and stunt inside. And what that means is that Tyler Biadasz is going to have to come across and pick up Crosby, which leaves Chris Paul blocking this big nose tackle one-on-one. And normally that's a pretty tough job for a guard to block a nose tackle one-on-one. But Chris Paul is a big, strong guy, and you're going to see him just drive this guy backwards. So we'll run this through. And again, the point being to show this play, again, you've got these three tight ends, Trent Scott, your sixth offensive line, Sinnott as your tight end 2, and then this time Yankoff's in, but it's still committing to this jumbo set run game. So you see Crosby stunts across Connolly to get inside. You see Chris Paul get his hands inside. He's a little bit higher than you'd ideally like, but he gets his hands inside on the chest of the defender, and then his strength just takes over. Crosby comes across, and Connolly does well to fight him and gives Biadasz a chance to help Wiley with this defensive tackle before he peels off to pick up Crosby. But then you see what happens is you get Paul driving his defender back, Biadasz doing a really nice job of letting Crosby come across and using his momentum against him to wash him down the line. And now you get Chris Rodriguez. I did draw it. Now you get Chris Rodriguez making this jump cut and seeing that he does have really good vision. And that's why he's able to see, like we saw in a couple of other plays where he maybe cut back a little bit too early, he was still able to identify, actually, that hole's back on that front side. I need to get that way. And you see that here again. He's trying to work this one back, but then he sees actually Crosby's stunting inside and Biadasz is washing down the line. Chris Paul is driving his nose tackle backwards one-on-one easily, and they're creating a lot of disruption, and that leaves this lane nicely for Rodriguez to run into. So he does a nice job making this sharp jump cut and then finding his way through the hole and picking up another solid 4 or 5 yards. And then one more for Chris Rodriguez, just to keep highlighting him. This was a really nice, tough run, and there's a couple of this was right at the end of the game. This was possibly the Commanders' last drive. They were trying to just run out the clock, and the Raiders still had slightly a chance to get the ball back and stuff. So they were loading the box. You can see just about every Raiders defender is in the box here, bar this deep safety, and even then you can see he's on his front foot ready to charge down. They're expecting a run, as they should, because it was obviously going to be a run. The Commanders switch up their scheme a little bit here. They run what's often known as a G lead, where you're pulling left guard Chris Paul. He's going to lead to the edge and kick out this edge defender. Ben Sinnott's going to get a nice couple of blocks here as well, and Rodriguez is going to take it to the edge, follow that lead block from Chris Paul. So we'll run this one through, and you'll see Crosby, being the menace that he is, stunts inside right off the snap, and that's really tough for Trent Scott and Tunsil to try to pick up. But Scott does a nice job bringing him into Tunsil, and Tunsil does enough to kind of stay in the way. Chris Paul gets that pull to the edge, and now you see Sinnott does a really nice job here. I wanted to highlight Sinnott on this play. You can see this is a defensive tackle that Tunsil was trying to down block on to allow Paul to pull to the edge. Now that because Crosby's stunting inside, this defensive tackle is thinking, I can actually loop over the top of this. I can see that Rodriguez is going that way. I know my guard is pulled that way. That's where the ball's going. So he's trying to loop over the top of this. But then Sinnott sees that, and he goes and kind of cracks this guy, and then spots this linebacker coming from the other end. And he gets kind of a 2-for-1, chipping one, going up and getting the other to kind of seal off the inside. So you can see he runs into him there, stands up that offensive tackle, and then works straight off it to pick up the linebacker. And that's 2, sealing that edge inside. Chris Paul does a nice job on the edge with the edge guy, and that just leaves this safety filling the lane against Chris Rodriguez. Now, you might be thinking, should Sinnott have gone and blocked that safety?
I was curious about that.
Yeah. So sometimes you'd say yes, but
Can you go back to the pre-snap look?
Yeah. We'll run it back. So I think the case was they were out-gapped because the Raiders knew the run was coming and they had everyone in the box. Yes, in theory, Sinnott could have been going to this guy, but Sinnott actually, straight off the line, is going towards this Mike linebacker to block him down inside. I think Sinnott probably would have been meaning to help Crosby, but because Crosby stunts inside, Scott kind of runs him into Tunsil, and that leaves Sinnott to go up and get the Mike linebacker. If Sinnott goes up and blocks this safety and Crosby still stunts inside, Scott blocks him, and this linebacker scrapes over the top and is left free in the hole. And you'd rather have your tight end blocking the Mike linebacker and leaving the safety free for the running back than the tight end blocking the safety and leaving the Mike linebacker free. So I think that's the decision.
You just don't have the numbers to run this, and I mean, it kind of works out a little bit that Crosby is stunting kind of inside like that, because it would be tough for Sinnott or Scott really here to. I'm not really sure what their plan is with this play, but they just don't have the numbers for it. I mean, it's just kind of a counting game really at this point. And you'd rather have your running back one-on-one with a safety than a linebacker, and you just expect him to make a miss, and if he makes a tackle, you say good job and go to the next play.
Yep. And that's exactly what we do. We get a nice play. As I say, Sinnott does a really nice job getting a 2-for-1 here, sealing off that inside, and that gives Chris Rodriguez that chance to go one-on-one with the safety in the hole. And you can see he drops his shoulder and really lands a pretty strong hit on him. Credit to the safety for holding on and bringing him down a little bit high up around the neck, but we'll let it go. And Rodriguez picks up another tough 4-yard run.
But that's a 4-yard run, and there's really not a safety in the league. There may be like 2 or 3 that are going to come up, hit you in the hole, and stop you right where you make contact. So that's a win for the offense. Is 4 yards really? I mean, depending on the down distance, but 4 yards is a win.
Especially in that situation, like at the end of the game, Raiders know they're running the ball to run out the clock. Like that was fourth quarter, like 4 minutes left, sort of thing. So that's why the Raiders were so loaded in the box trying to stop that run, and that's what made them outnumbered. So 4 yards.
Real quick, gentlemen. Sorry to interrupt you. So Ben Sinnott, he's obviously been a polarizing figure in the Washington circles, but it seems that both of you guys are pretty impressed by the way he blocked this last game. Did he stand out to you? Did he grade pretty well, Nick? And how did he play, in your opinion?
Yeah, I thought it was one of his best games of his career.
Okay.
Specifically in the run game. I thought he was just really good. I thought he was moving people against their will, and that's what you want to do in the run game. I put together a couple clips of him blocking, and some people responded saying he's not really doing anything, but you're moving people against their will. You're driving them farther downfield, and I think people kind of get lost in the fact that run blocking, that's literally all run blocking is you are moving people out of where they want to be and preventing them from where they want to be. And I think he did a great job of that. There's a lot of questions why he's not really involved in the pass game. The answer to that is Zach Ertz. You're just not going to see him a lot when Zach Ertz is still on this roster, because Zach Ertz, I think, is outside of Terry, is probably their most reliable pass catcher. You could maybe even argue he's more reliable than Terry. So he's just not going to see snaps there. And tight end is such a tough position to kind of step into the NFL and produce right away. People kind of get spoiled a little bit with some of these guys that kind of come in right away and really dominate, but that is just not the case. And I think he did a really, really good job here.
Yeah, I'd go one step further and say it was the best game of his career today, especially as a blocker. I thought Cliff did a really nice job of using him the way that Sinnott works best. Like last week, they asked about Sinnott as a potential replacement for Bates, and he said he was serviceable in line, but we kind of see him more as an off-the-ball guy, which means kind of like almost like a fullback or a H-back kind of thing. Where
that's what they did a lot with him at K-State as well. Like they used him
Yeah.
a lot as like kind of an H-back or fullback sort of thing, and it worked
Yeah.
out well because when he gets a full like steam ahead sort of thing, it's tough to kind of get off of his block.
Yeah, and we'll see some of that shortly. And I actually wrote about him this morning as well, and I was really impressed with how he blocked and the way they used him. So we'll see some of those. I'm trying to highlight them when they come up, but there's a lot of talking points of each of these runs. So that was Chris Rodriguez. He had a really nice game as kind of the lead back, I guess. Everyone wants to see Bill, and so let's see some Bill. So this was Bill's first run, and you see we're still with that 3 tight end set. We got Trent Scott on the end of the line, Ben Sinnott outside of him, and then you've got I think this is Colson Yankov as this kind of H-back, and he's got a motion across and kick out, kind of like we saw Zach Ertz do on the first play. And Bill's going to take this ball from the pistol and run up the middle. And we'll run this one through, and you'll see. So we get some nice down blocks on this outside, and what Bill sees when he gets this ball is this Mike linebacker hasn't yet been blocked, and he shouldn't have been necessarily, but he hasn't yet been blocked, and he's filling this lane. And you got guys on this side working inside and kind of cutting off his ability to continue that way. So his next obvious read would be straight up the middle, but the Mike linebacker's filling that hole. So what he's going to do is he sees these down blocks working on this side with Scott and Sinnott and Connolly, and so he's going to bounce his run back behind them. Again, we talked about it on the last play. You'd much rather have the running back 1-1 with this safety trying to fill than this linebacker. And so by making this sharp cut, he's going to give Connolly a chance to go make that block, which Connolly does. And he's going to work behind these two, down blocking these other 2 defenders. So he makes that nice cut, gets outside of those 2, and that gives him a 1-on-1 against this safety. And this is where I think there's a little bit of a misconception about what Bill is. A lot of people think he's this power guy that's going to run over this guy. Now, he does have power. He's got really good contact balance, but he's more of a sharp cut guy that's going to make guys miss. And that's what he does here. He makes a really sharp cut, and he makes the defender whiff on the tackle rather than like overpower him. Like we saw Chris Rodriguez lower his shoulder and run over that safety but still get tackled, whereas Bill makes a sharp cut and makes the defender's tackle weaker.
Kind of like this freeze frame here. Kind of looks like he's looking back at him saying, talking shit.
Gotcha. Yeah, exactly.
So he bounces off that tackle, does a nice job of spinning out of it, gets some more. Again, Sinnott's doing a nice job. We're blocking downfield for him. The other safety comes up, and eventually, they're getting multiple bodies on him. But you see, this is where the contact balance and the ability to keep pumping his legs and pushing forward is really good. And you see him fight for as many yards as possible. Ends up with 9 yards on that carry when he could have easily been 3 or 4. If he had been
his ability to cut is, I think, his best attribute. There's a lot of I took a lot of screenshots when I was watching him of just like the way his ankles are positioned sometimes when he cuts. It doesn't look like that is physically possible. But yeah, no, I think that's his best ability, and it's why people want to see more of him. And me selfishly, having him on a lot of my fantasy teams, I would like to see more of him. But there is a reason that he is not playing as much right now, and we just kind of have to be patient with it.
Yep. So that was Bill's first run, 9 yards. This was his second one. It's a very similar look, just flipped. Scott and Sinnott are this time on the other side of the line. You got Yankov here, and he's going to do that same motion across and kick out. This time they're switching things up a little bit. They're running a different scheme. So Andrew Wiley here at right guard is going to pull and try to wrap around to the first, second level defender that you can find. And the idea is you're running power here to this side. But that gets quickly blown up by this middle linebacker, as we'll see. So you got, I think this is Tunsil, runs down to help Paul on the defensive tackle, and that gives this Mike linebacker a chance to run straight through. And I think I did. So you can see the Mike linebacker is running straight through, completely unblocked. Now, you might think Andrew Wiley should see that and block him, but Andrew Wiley is targeting the end of the line and working around where he had Sinnott and Trent Scott blocking down. His job is to kind of wrap around that end line of scrimmage and pick up this linebacker. He's not working on this guy. So this guy was probably Tunsil's guy, but Tunsil was trying to help pull inside. So this guy gets a straight run through. Now, what Bill does is kind of what Nick was just talking about, which is make an extremely sharp cut. You'll see that here. You don't really get to see the angles from the ankles from this angle, but you can see he is like a yard or two away from this linebacker, and you can see he's sunk down. He's making this cut, and he's able to jump outside and get around that linebacker, and then he makes another cut. So this is where not many backs can do what he just does on this play. So he makes that first guy miss, which is incredible with how that linebacker just ran straight through. He makes him miss. But then a lot of backs would be running into the back of these blockers or trying to bounce this to the edge and get tackled by Jeremy Chin on the edge here. But he sees, actually, I can get back inside. I've got guys up here. There's a lane here. So he makes another cut, gets inside Tunsil and Chris Paul there, and works his way up to the second level, where he's met by the other linebacker that was coming off the edge. But he still shows great contact balance, great power to continue staying on his feet and pumping his legs, fighting for as many yards as possible, and turns that again into another 9-yard carry. So, and then one final one from Bill. We talked about this guy is an absolute menace, and he is. He's stunting inside again here, and Bill just makes him miss. And it's another example. Again, same idea with the scheme that we've been looking at with 3 tight ends, motion across, kick out. And you get Crosby stunting inside of Trent Scott here. This is a really tough block for Trent Scott to try to make Crosby stunting inside. He does just enough to keep from Crosby from just plowing straight into Bill at the snap. But obviously, Bill gets the ball here and is like, oh, okay, I need to do something. I can't just carry on this run. So again, we see that sharp cut. You can just about see that ankle here being that low. That angle is insane. He makes that cut, avoids Crosby, and now he's again got this safety in the hole. And somehow thinks, I'm just going to cut back inside here. I have no idea how he thinks about doing this. Like at this point, I think 90% of the running backs in the league just try to run over this safety or try to dodge him. Why he tries to go back inside, I have no idea. It's an amazing play, and he finds daylight.
Wow. And
if Crosby hadn't done this amazing job of working back and bringing him down here, I think there's every chance he outruns this safety. Incredible run.
Yeah, if you go back to the start of the snap, you can just kind of like pause it like right before the snap, and you can just watch Max Crosby's get off here. It's just kind of insane. Like a little bit farther. Like look, he's already kind of through the guard and the tackle, and these guys are not out of their stance yet. Yeah. And that's the problem that you have to deal with when you're Connolly, is dealing with Max Crosby. And I think he does about all that he can really do on this play. And you just gotta hang on, basically. Don't hold, hang on, and just kind of hope your running back cuts against it. And then, this is just a silly cut as well.
This is a stupid cut, but this is also just speaks to Max Crosby. Like a lot of defensive ends that have stunted inside and got beat like this are thinking, okay, well, these guys are going to make the play. That's my play done. He doesn't give up on it. He's the one that actually makes this tackle. He circles back and makes this tackle. Just an incredible play by Bill, also an incredible play by Crosby.
It just shows you the NFL is just the best athletes in the world, right? It's out of control. Like Max Crosby is just a super athlete, and it's a blessing and a curse. We've played some awesome defensive ends over the past couple of weeks. He's been blowing up the offensive line, but Max Crosby is so explosive, just penetrating through the offensive line, and that Crosby cut is awesome. It's fantastic, and I think he's the most laterally elusive running back we've had in quite some time, maybe since Chris Thompson's, and Washington's pretty impressive.
Yep. So that was Bill. Bill was really good. But the run of the day was Jeremy McNichols. Who would have thought of that coming into this one? So we'll get to some read option stuff in a minute because that's coming up. That was also a big part of it. But this is a read option scheme where they've got, I think this was Chris Rodriguez at this point, playing effectively fullback. You've got Jeremy McNichols here. He's going to take the handoff inside. Mariota's reading Crosby on the edge here. They just decided, well, we can't block him, so we won't block him and we'll read him instead. And we'll arc our fullback around him and we'll run this ball inside. And so Mariota signals for they've got this motion, they've got all of that.
And this is the type of stuff that they did a lot last year. Like they did it a lot with I know we talked a lot about their pony personnel is what we called it, but They did it a lot last year, and you hadn't really seen it as much this year with Jaden. But when you have Mariota and they don't really, not that they don't care that he's going to go get injured, but you just kind of are okay with him running.
Yep. And so, yeah, we're going to put this ball into the belly of Jeremy McNichols, and Mariota is going to read Crosby, and Crosby makes this a tough read because he comes down towards the run inside, but then he pauses just at the mesh point and kind of gives Mariota a tough read. Do I pull this and run? Do I hand it off? And Crosby just slightly hints that he's going to jump up and try to tackle Mariota if he pulls this. So at the last second, I think he decides to give this to McNichols inside. And so McNichols gets the handoff inside. Rodriguez gets a little chip on Crosby just to stop him from just running straight through, even though he's meant to be unblocked. He just got too close, and Rodriguez couldn't do anything but run into him. But at this point, you've got some nice blocks inside. You've got Tyler Biotish blocking the defensive tackle. You've got Andrew Wiley working up to block the linebacker. You've got Connolly doing a nice job blocking the other defensive tackle and sealing him off on the backside. I think this is Sinnott, or no, this might be Luke McCaffrey or even Colson Yankov trying to block Jeremy Chin. But he's not got a great angle to it. So you've got Chin here ready to fill this gap, and you've got this linebacker here ready to fill this gap. So you've got two effectively unblocked defenders at this point. So you've got some nice blocks up front for McNichols to initially carry this. But as he works through that lane between the two defensive tackles, yes, we've got Andrew Wiley blocking one linebacker, but you've got Jeremy Chin filling the hole and this linebacker working over the top to also fill the lane inside. So Chin's the first guy that's going to make, well, actually, this linebacker makes the first contact, but Chin's going to be the guy that makes the main initial contact. At this point, I think this play is done for a lot of running backs, but McNichols just somehow bounces off of it, and Chin doesn't wrap him up properly, and that kind of gets this linebacker out of the wrong position. Now he tries to finish off the play, and you've got the Chin still got his arm in there. You've got this defender kind of working back, trying to get his arms around McNichols. Somehow he manages to bounce off all that contact, work off an offensive tackle. Max Crosby somehow comes out of nowhere to get involved again, and tries to make an arm tackle at the last second. McNichols somehow works through that, and then it's a foot race between this corner that's getting blocked by, I can't tell who, I think this is Chris Moore on the edge, and then this linebacker that was working against Laramie Tunsil peels off, but the linebacker's never going to catch McNichols. Pretty poor effort from the corner on the outside, I would think, but McNichols runs away from it and just about has enough to go 60 yards, take it to the house for the touchdown. So that was an incredible play from McNichols, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to show that was, yes, the offensive line played well, and the scheme that Cliff had, as we'll see with some of these read option stuff coming up shortly, was really good. But also the running backs did some work themselves. Like, we saw Chris Rodriguez creating some of his own lanes, sometimes by fault, by taking the wrong cut, but then having the vision to correct that. We saw Bill making some really sharp cuts to make the first defender miss and create some stuff. And then we saw there McNichols just breaking about 10 tackles to then go and take it to the house. Like, the run, when a run game is successful, everyone has to be involved. And we've seen some good blocks from the offensive line. We've seen some good blocks from the tight ends. We've seen some nice schemes, and we'll see some more nice schemes here. But also the running backs did a nice job themselves. And I think running backs can sometimes not get enough credit for a good run game. And they did a really nice job. So,
Mark, let me throw a question at you.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. So people get they had high praise for Marcus Mariota, so he did a great job with the read option. Some people said, I don't know if you agree with this, that he even had a better job and he was more efficient with the RPO than Jaden Daniels. Is there any merit behind that?
I don't know if there's a huge amount of merit to it. I think it's a case of Mariota had some good read. Like, Mariota's been doing read option stuff for a lot longer than Jaden, and
he's been doing read option stuff since Jaden was in like middle school.
Yeah,
more experience for sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
he had more experience, and that is his bread and butter. So he is very good at it, and Jaden's not bad at it. He just had the one misread the other week where he got blown up. Yeah, so. There was, I think it's just a recency bias. Like, Mariota was really good and Jaden had one bad read against the Packers. So I don't think there's any huge merit to it. Okay. Like, if maybe on a snap basis, yes, Mariota might have just a little bit better read of it, but it's not like Jaden Daniels is bad at it. Jaden's very good. Mariota's just excellent at the reads on those kind of things. As we'll see here. So we got some more read option schemes, and this is
before you go through this play, I just look at the lines here that you're drawing. And if you want to play linebacker in the NFL, this is what you have to deal with. You've got a guard and tackle pulling one way, and you've got two fullbacks pulling the other way. And on top of that, you've got a quarterback who could potentially keep it. And like, this is just so hard to defend.
Yep. And this was some of the well, Nick broke it down pretty nicely there, but this is some of the scheme stuff that Kingsbury did a really nice job of to help supplement the run game as well. Because if you're just going to line up with lots of personnel and just try to pound it out the middle, you are eventually, unless you just have better guys up front, you are eventually going to run into a bit of a brick wall. So Cliff did a nice job of designing some different schemes and getting some different looks. I love the pistol kind of diamond look that they do. I think they should do more of it, and that's where you can get a guy like Ben Sinnott involved a lot more. And you got Yankov here as well. And like Nick said, you got a GT counterplay. This is one of their favorite schemes from last year, where you got the right guard Andrew Wiley pulling to kick out the edge. Then you got the right tackle Connolly pulling and wrapping around to block the first second level defender that you can find. You got down blocks all on this side, and then you've got the confusion of both of these fullbacks or these tight ends arc blocking around Max Crosby. Again, we talked about Crosby was a menace all game, so they just decided we're not going to block him, we're just going to read him, and we arc around him. And then if he crashes on the run, Mariota pulls it. If he holds his position, Mariota hands it off. So there's a lot of moving parts, and Nick is right. That makes it really hard on these two linebackers and any of these second levels defenders to actually read.
Yeah, I love the arc block from tight ends and fullbacks and anything. I just think it's so much better to do that because if Crosby's job is the running back and he stays and whatnot, now you've put your linebackers in a terrible spot because again you've got these guys arcing around and now they're at a leverage disadvantage. So I love when teams do this. I think teams need to do it more often. But yeah, I think and then when you have two guys doing it, it's just not fair.
Yeah, it's really tough for these guys because, as Nick said, you got two guys pulling to the left, you got two guys in the backfield going to the right. It's like, which way is the ball going?
Yeah, that affects their gap. Like that affects their gaps. That affects where they need to be because when you have guard and tackle pulling, you need to flow over to where they're pulling. But when you've got the fullbacks going the other way, they are supposed to shift over that way. So you kind of essentially are moving four people, and they're supposed to almost stay in the same gap that they're in. But it just makes it so hard.
Yeah, and it also makes it hard on a guy like Crosby because suddenly it looks like first he sees both these guys pulling and it's like, oh, they're pulling away from me, I'm crashing down. And then he sees two fullbacks running at him and it's like, oh, am I actually getting blocked here? Is this actually a play action pass? What's going on here? And then Sinnott at the last second does a nice job arcing around him. You can see Crosby was ready to be blocked and then suddenly he's not blocked. And then he's ready to be blocked again and Yankov arcs around him. And at that point, it's like, well, I've got to commit inside to the run game because I'm getting arced around here. I'm committing inside, and that gives Mariota a much easier job of giving this a keep read. And what you've got set up then is you've got these two arcing to the edge, and you've got receiver Chris Moore coming in to block this linebacker who we just talked about has had a hell of a job trying to decipher exactly what's happening going on this play. And so Chris Moore's able to go in and crack this linebacker.
Because he's supposed to be the quarterback player here, and he's supposed to flow over the top with Crosby taking the edge. But that makes it hard because your job is also to be on the other side because you've got a GT counter going the other way. So it just makes it hard. Then you throw in a crack block with two arc blocks, and it's just tough. And even if Mariota does not keep this, Rodriguez has a huge hole here as well.
It's true.
Yeah. You can see Connolly's got to go block Jamal Adams in space, and then you just got all this space for Rodriguez to go. So
it freezes Crosby enough that he's not going to be able to track this down on the backside. So Rodriguez has all of this room. And I mean, it's Max Crosby, so he probably will track him down. But yeah, it's just no matter what he does with this ball here, you're looking at a huge game.
Yeah. And so, you get Chris Moore comes in and makes a nice crack block on the linebacker, which then allows Sinnott to go and block the corner on the edge, move him out, and Yankov to go run right up the seam and go block Jeremy Chin deep. And then you've got Mariota running to the edge. Crosby's like, oh, crap, the ball's actually going out here. Moore's blocking the linebacker inside. That's pinning the defense inside. You got Sinnott is blocked the corner off the screen. And so you just got all this space for Yankov to go block Jeremy Chin and Mariota take off. And I think at this point, Mariota gets a little bit excited, thinking he's 21 again rather than in his 30s, and thinks he can go outrun guys. And that's why he ends up trying to do a little bit too much and fumbles the ball. But the scheme was still really nice. Terry missed
That was a really cool play.
Recover that. Really cool play. Here's one more really cool read option play where this one wasn't quite as big a gain, but Mariota at least held onto the ball. And we again see Sinnott in the backfield. So I talked about really liking what Sinnott did in this game. This is the kind of block that he really excels at, where he's doing this arc block for Mariota, being the lead blocker for him. It's a slightly different scheme. It's the same basic idea. It's a read option play for Mariota, where you can either hand it off. He's reading this unblocked defensive end. But this time they switch it up a little bit. So you can see there's a little bit of an unbalanced line. You've got tight end Colson Yankov lined up in the left tackle spot, and left tackle Laramie Kuntzel is lined up as a tight end on the right side of the line. So you've got an unbalanced line, which naturally makes the defense try to shift over to this side to cover the run.
That was the other part that I forgot, because this is still the first quarter. I forgot they also threw an unbalanced line at them as well.
Yeah. So again, it just adds more and more layers to this run scheme, where it's really, really tough to defend. You can see this linebacker is like, what the hell are we doing? And trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, so this time they're just reading this defensive end, and Mariota's going to pull this one as he initially steps inside, and then he does try to circle back outside, but he's kind of thinking, is Sinnott going to block me or not? And Mariota, I think, trusts that Sinnott's going to, pick him up if he needs to. And you can just see his weight shifts just slightly inside at the last second, thinking this ball's being handed off. He thinks he's done enough to stop Mariota pulling it, so he's working back inside, and that is Mariota getting a nice read to pull that back, and trust that, hey, I've got Yankov going up to block Jeremy Chin. I've got Sinnott wrapping around to block, I think this might be Jamal Adams or someone on the edge here, maybe just a corner on the edge, and this defender is going to be optioned off and out of the play. And yeah, you get a nice job. I mean, that's an ideal look for an offensive coordinator. You got your two tight ends blocking two DBs on the edge with the quarterback running to the edge. Now Yankov still needs work as a blocker. He kind of falls off of this, and this is another play where I think Ben Sinnott does a really nice job. He goes and gets involved in this this cornerback, and this isn't a harder block than it looks, because these corners are smaller, yes, and you can overpower them, but they are also more agile, and you're blocking in space. So these guys, when you see a big offensive lineman pulling to the edge, sometimes they have a really tough time of actually engaging in these blocks, because the corners can give a last second move and dodge them. Sinnott is that perfect balance of being big enough where if he gets his hands on them, he's going to overpower them, but he's also small enough and agile enough to be athletic and actually engage in those blocks and stop them doing those little moves to avoid the block. So he gets on this block and he starts driving this guy backwards, leading that way for Mariota to get to the edge. Mariota does see that Jeremy Chin has worked around Yankov's block, but Ben Sinnott also sees that. I'm not quite sure how, because he was looking the wrong way, but at the last second, he turns his head inside, and you can see he sees, actually, I'm blocking the corner, but Chin's also a threat. I need to pick that up. So he stops his block and just does enough to get in Chin's way, gives him a little shoulder, and that gives Mariota that little bit extra to turn this into an even bigger gain. He gets past that first down marker, he turns the corner, gets up the field, and gets out of bounds for a nice 14.
That play, you can go back a little bit, because I talked about this, or I clipped this play up as well with one of Ben Sinnott's, because I thought this was one of his better blocks of the game. You could make the case that it was his best block of the game, but 36 job here is to keep contained. He needs to play outside, and Sinnott being able to get up to him and prevent him from keeping contained is what gets the first down on this play. Because if you cut back, you've got three guys that are ready to tackle him there. So Sinnott, I was told that he was just running next to somebody here on this block, but no. This is a very, very good block. It's tough to do, because the corner wants to dip under you, get outside. He prevents him from doing that. And then Mark showed at the end, again, he gets a little piece of Jeremy Chin as well. So that takes what could be a 5, 6, 7 yard gain into 14, 15 yard gain. So.
And gentlemen, real quickly, just have a working definition for me and the listeners as well. An arc block is defined as someone that pulls but potentially intentionally passes over a blocker to block someone else behind them. Okay.
You arc around him.
I'll show it again with Sinnott on that run once we get through to it.
Okay.
Let's see the fumble here. So yeah, you see on a lot of normal runs without a option for the quarterback to run the ball and keep the ball, what you would see is this fullback, or sometimes it's a tight end slightly off here. They would sift back across the line, and then they would block this defensive end on the backside. But this defensive end is being read by the quarterback, so he doesn't need to be blocked. And what a lot of teams do to counter the read option is they use what's called the scrape exchange. So they have the defensive end will naturally crash inside to try to and just play the running back, and then they will have a linebacker or safety scrape over the top to the edge. And then the idea is, but if the quarterback is just reading the end and you don't have any arc blockers, he's going to be forced to keep the ball because the defensive end scrapes inside. Then you get a linebacker over the top blocking him free. But the counter to that is you have these arc blockers, and Yankov does it as well here, where they fake like they're going to block this defensive end, but then they arc around him and they don't actually block him, and they go block the next defender. So you'll see it for both Yankov and Sinnott here. You can see Yankov initially steps towards him and then arcs around him and goes up to try to get Chin. And you can see Sinnott again sifting back. On a normal run, he would be blocking this guy and trying to create that lane inside. But because it's a read option, he's going to come up to that guy, and then he's going to fake the block and arc around and actually block the corner on the edge. And you can see that that leaves this guy in a real tough bind because at our normal run play, he might see Sinnott coming back across him and think, oh no, I'm getting blocked, I need to go and block Sinnott. And then suddenly Sinnott leaves him and goes to the flat, and Mariota pulls it, and this guy's left in the blender going, where the hell is the ball? So that's what these arc blocks are, and it's a really, really nice addition to any sort of.
They do it. They do it a lot too with their counter. They'll do it to the play side on counter. So John Bates does it a lot, where he'll take the step out like he's pretending to block the edge, and then he'll get up to the second level, because then it just takes, again, with counter and power plays, a lot of times these edge rushers will have to spill it, meaning they go under the block to bounce it to make the running back bounce outside. So when you kind of give them that little arc block and kind of get him to pause a little bit, it puts your pullers and other blockers in better situations as well, that they can now kind of take advantage of him freezing for a second, keep him outside, push him inside, whatever they want to do. So I think it's just a really good technique of just, again, taking advantage of these like really, really good edge rushers and putting them in places where they kind of have to stop their feet. We showed Max Crosby he's one of the best in the NFL at just straight get off time and getting out of his stance into the line of scrimmage. But if you make him pause just a little bit, then it just helps your entire offense.
And this was a great example of what Nick was just saying, where sometimes you would see John Bates would be lined up here in the tight end spot outside the tackle, and they do the GT tackle that way. GT counter that way, and then you'd have Bates here arcing around this guy and faking the block and then arcing around him. Sinnott does the same job here, and Yankov actually does the same job here as well. They're just in a different spot, but it's the same principle where you have these guys pulling this way, and we saw, as we talked about when we looked at this play a minute ago, Crosby kind of thinks, oh, I'm getting blocked, I need to stunt inside of that, and then it's, oh, this guy's actually coming to block me, I need to stunt inside of that. And by the time he's got inside of those two and he realizes, actually, Jeremy McNichols doesn't have the ball, Mariota has the ball. Mariota's already by me, and he's already to the edge, and he's got to pivot back outside and try to chase it down, and he can't do that.
Yeah, there was another one. You probably don't have it clipped up because it was only a 4-yard run, but I think it was Bill who ran it. But I thought it was probably Sinnott's best block, where he takes a linebacker and drives him 10 yards off the ball, because, again, he's using that arc block, fakes it, step down, and now gets his hand on a linebacker and just starts to drive him. But it's just, again, it's another step that they add to this run game that makes it even tougher to kind of figure out.
Yep.
This screenshot is insane to look at. Zach Ertz halfback, Deebo Samuel quarterback, unbalanced line.
So I thought we would. Well, we've got 5 minutes left. I did have other plays, but we're not going to get to them. So we'll finish on the fun couple of run plays. Where Deebo got the ball. And this was, again, what Nick talked about, where they just threw everything. Kingsbury threw everything at the Raiders. And this is absolutely the definition of everything. Like you just said, we got Deebo playing quarterback. You got Zach Ertz playing running back, essentially, in the backfield with Deebo. Fullback, I guess you could say. You got Chris Rodriguez playing kind of H-back tight end, kind of just behind the line in this weird kind of hidden spot. You got an unbalanced line with, again, Laramie Tunsil not playing left tackle. He's playing tight end over the right tackle. And you've got no left tackle at all. You don't even put a second tight end in there. You've just got no left tackle. It's a crazy look. And I think
they're doing all of this in tempo. They're doing all of this at tempo. Like in the first few drives, they did everything at tempo. I'm looking at it now. There were 26 seconds left on the play clock when they snapped this ball. So they're doing all of this crazy stuff during tempo, and it's why it drives you crazy. Like, why aren't they doing this all the time, sort of thing?
Yeah. And what this all is really nice disguise to essentially a basic, what a lot of people would call split zone run, where
it's just split zone, but you're just throwing everything at them.
Yeah, so it's just a zone run where you have all the offensive linemen blocking to the right. You've got this is the what plays off of those arc blocks what I was talking about a minute ago, where with Sinnott, where he sifts back across the line and normally would block the defensive end, but actually arcs around him. Because this guy's not being read on this play, Rodriguez is doing the same job that Sinnott did, but instead of arcing around him, he's just going to go block him straight up. And that's what makes playing defensive end against read option stuff really, really tough. But yeah, he's going to go and cut this off on the backside, and you're just going to have Ertz go and try to block on the front side of this. Debo's just going to take the direct snap and run up the middle. Now, this gets a little bit messy, but you can see the movement they create, and by Rodriguez cutting this off on the backside, suddenly a pretty big lane emerges with Debo having to work, potentially getting to work one-on-one against Chin, is playing slightly deeper. But Debo actually decides, rather than trying to take on Chin, I'm going to try to work this back to the front side, where it's got a little bit messy, but it's potentially there. And it turns out to be a really good decision, because this linebacker comes out of nowhere almost from behind.
95 decides to spin out of his gap, which helps this whole thing.
Yeah, and then you've got actually Biotish is there and Connolly's there, and there's daylight here for Debo to try to work that way. And he somehow manages to get through a couple of a lane that didn't really exist, and he turns it into a nice gain. I think it was another 9-yard carry, but it was just more scheme diversity. And then one more to end it on, because we're coming close to an hour here, was another Debo run, and I've got both angles on it. So we'll start here. Debo's lined up outside. He's going to motion him before the snap to just behind Mariota in the pistol, and then you've got Ben Sinnott here off, and this is what we talked about, him being off, and he's going to wrap around on what's a counter play where you're going to pull Wiley. He's going to kick out the edge. You're going to have Sinnott wrap around to try to block the first linebacker. You'll get a better look at it from the end zone angle. I think I got the end zone angle, but we needed to see where Samuel first started, and he goes and picks up a nice game. But I'll show you I have got the end zone angle. So yeah, we've got, as we said, Wiley pulling to the edge, Sinnott wrapping around for the first linebacker. Krosky Merritt ends up becoming a fullback. He doesn't really do that much here, and this is an example of why he's still not on the field for a ton of these kind of things. You get Debo getting the ball here, and now you've got this guy thinking, am I being read by the quarterback? Am I being blocked by the fullback? Is this tight end coming across to block me? Is this guard coming across to block me? What am I doing? And what's actually happening is Wiley's coming across to team out, but you get so far up the field, it becomes a really easy job for Wiley. Krosky Merritt comes running out here. I'm not really sure what he's thinking he's doing. I think he's meant to go block this safety, but he's kind of just doing his own thing. And you've got Sinnott doing a really nice job. He's going to wrap around and go block this linebacker inside. And this is a really nice block. He does a really nice job getting up into the chest of the linebacker and moving him backwards to open up this lane where you've got Tunsil and Paul doing a nice job. Now, they do lose this here. I think they both are driving the defensive tackle to the linebacker, but I think they both think, oh, this linebacker, I need to go get him. And they both kind of leave the defensive tackle while they both try to get the linebacker. Whereas it should be one peels off and one stays on. They kind of both peel off and leave the defensive tackle, who eventually makes the tackle. But you see Sinnott, again, we talked about it a lot. He does a really nice job here, blocking that linebacker, moving him backwards, creating that lane for Debo to work inside of him. If Paul or Tunsil had stuck on this defensive tackle, there's every chance Debo runs straight through that gap and Jeremy Chin has to make a tough play. But as it was, they still picked up 4 yards on the play. So.
And on that play, like, again, just throwing all this sort of stuff at them, that edge defender should probably be spilling that, which is what I kind of talked about, where, again, he needs to go under that first block. They were playing cover 2, so you're typically going to ask your edge defenders to spill it out to the flat defender, and then the linebackers can kind of go over the top. But you throw all this at him, and he's like, what the hell am I actually supposed to do? I actually spill this? And now he's way upfield, no position to make a play. Honestly, Wiley could have just left him unblocked at that point, but you're supposed to block him. But and it's just, again, I know it's kind of seems a lot and it's only for 4 yards, but these plays have potential to go very, very, very far often.
It's funny, guys. We're going to bring some closure to our show in a minute, but it's funny, Nick. You actually predicted this. You said run the damn ball, and the Commanders didn't run the damn ball this week.
I think he's watching.
Yeah, mostly watching over there. That being said, it's kind of we'll have 2 questions to kind of close the show out. The tail of the tape, fellas. Let's think about this, right? Obviously, there's a lot of kudos to throw around. Who do you want to give kudos to this week? Ben Sinnott, Cliff Kingsbury, Marcus Mariota. Who stood out to you the most? Start off with you, Mark.
Well, I'll take the one that Nick probably wants to do with Ben Sinnott because I just wrote about him this morning. Like Nick said, and we pointed out multiple times throughout this, he did a really nice job. And there was a big question about, like, I know a lot of people have been questioning, like, where is he contributing? He's not contributing. He's a second-round pick. He's a bust. And it's like, well, he's stuck behind Zach Ertz has been this fantastic receiving option for Jaden Daniels as the pass catcher. And John Bates is one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL as a run blocker. So, like, he's kind of just stuck in a. This is what depth looks like, right? Where you have a young.
We're not used to that.
Yeah, exactly. You're used to a second round pick being forced into lots of snaps straight away and having to contribute. This is what depth looks like, where you have good veterans ahead of him. That means he has to earn his snaps and he has time to develop. He doesn't have to be thrown in right away to be a significant contributor right away. But we saw these kind of art block stuff. Blocking on the move, he was really good at last year as well. Like, I still remember there was a touchdown against the Cowboys where Jaden Daniels kept it on a read option and he went and blocked and ran over a corner on the edge, and that let Jaden run it in for a 17-yard touchdown. Like, that was a huge block, and he did that a couple times last year. So he was good at that last year. It's just they didn't use it often enough. We finally saw it with no John Bates to be trusted in the normal run stuff they do. They had to adapt a little bit, and that's why we saw Trent Scott in there a lot, and we saw Sinnott in these different positions where he was used a lot more effectively rather than just being used as a second or a number 1 tight end on the line of scrimmage. That's not his game, and Kingsbury said that in the presser a few weeks ago, that he's serviceable in line, but he's not a great in line blocker. They see him as a move guy, and then that's what we saw in this game. When you move him around and give him a bit of momentum, he goes and knocks those guys over and makes some really good blocks in space. So I'm excited that hopefully we'll get to see that a little bit more, and the way he played in this game, hopefully he will earn. The way he played means he's earned some reps as a pass catcher, and then you can do some play action stuff off of what we saw from here and get him the ball in his hands so he can show his ability after the catch, which was his number 1 thing in college, really, was his ability after the catch.
Absolutely. So Ben Sinnott definitely showed some flashes, and as you alluded to, at tight end, they're a well-rounded position, right? They contribute in the run game, they contribute in the pass game, made a great blocking game this week. So that was a good job for Ben Sinnott. Nick, what about you? Who stood out to you?
Yeah, I'd say Chris Paul. I thought, kind of was a little shocked to everybody that he was going to start. Healthy scratch for Brandon Coleman. I thought he played fantastic, specifically in the run game. I thought he was really good. Mariota played great. Yeah, we didn't even touch on the defense, but I think the defensive line played really well. Deron Payne specifically, I thought he was really dominant at times. Von Miller also in the snap that he played. So I think overall it's a really good game. Yeah, I think, I mean, again, it's another one of those games where it's like, I really want to be all in on this defensive line, but that Raiders offensive line is so bad. It's one of the worst I've watched. And so I'm kind of a little
cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic about them. The Falcons' offensive line is really good. So I think that's another big test for them. So, but yeah, I think Commanders' offensive line, Chris Paul was really good.
Very good. Let's do a quick hitter, guys, if you don't mind. So we talked about all the positives that happened this last week. What is something you want to see maybe potentially change or an area of improvement for next week, offense or defense? Nick, we'll do you, then we'll do Mark.
Secondary communication busts in the secondary. There's still a lot of them, and now you've got a new safety coming in that's going to have to step in. So that's just going to cause even more problems. I mean, we all saw that Trey Tucker torched them, and it was weird that it didn't even matter. But yeah, I think the communication. It's not like these guys are really getting just straight up beat off of the ball on man coverage. It's a lot of just miscommunication, guys not really knowing where they're supposed to be, and that kind of happens typically in the start of the season. It does take some time to get used to it. I think specifically Quan Martin has been a bit of a kind of head case at times where he's just kind of always out of position, which was a little surprising to me. I was pretty high on him coming into the season. But yeah, I think overall it's the secondary communication that's just got to be better.
I agree with that. Mark, what about you?
Well, I think for me, the thing I want to see is that they continue with this run game and keep.
Yeah, it's like Cliff has like the Green Goblin mask. He's just yelling at him to just throw more screens. You don't need to do that. Just keep running the ball.
Yeah, keep running the ball. Keep being diverse with it as well. Keep using the kind of schemes that we've talked about, where they're using guys like Sinnott in these kind of arc blocking or the backfield stuff where he's moving into blocks, getting momentum into blocks, doing all of that kind of stuff really makes it hard for those second level players to read where they're meant to go. And that's what made them successful when they ran the ball last year was the diversity of the schemes and the ability to pull anyone in any direction at any given time. And I mean that legitimately, from the whole offensive line, including the center, to all the tight ends and even the receivers. Anyone could pull at any time, and that makes it really hard to read. So I hope Cliff doesn't get away from that. I hope
they got back to doing it at quick pace too. Like they got back to their tempo. Like I said, like they did all of that stuff in the first quarter in tempo, like snapping the ball with 20 plus seconds left to go on the play clock, which he kind of didn't do against Green Bay again. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I want to see.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, I appreciate your breakdowns. I also appreciate the 1,041 people that watch us live on the show. I definitely appreciate that. We're here every single Wednesday breaking down the film. You'll see us next Wednesday against the reviewing the Atlanta Falcons. That's Mark Bullock to my right. That's Nick to my left. Follow them on X. Make sure you guys follow them on Substack and on PFF as well. It's great seeing you guys. See you guys next week. Peace.